inviting you to enjoy Britain's most beautiful gardens as chosen by some of our most prominent personalities. Whether they're writers, politicians or broadcasters, these luminaries are also some of the nation's greatest garden lovers, and their chosen sanctuaries hold the keys to some highly personal memories. But who is unlocking the key to their favourite garden today? We've come to Sheffield Park in East Sussex, which has been chosen as the favourite garden of a well-known personality. We'll be finding out why they've chosen it as our famous figure takes a tour of this 120-acre estate. Built in the 18th century, Sheffield Park is one of over 170 British gardens designed by renowned landscape architect Capability Brown. The name Sheffield originates from Saxon times and literally means sheep clearing. But fortunately, the lay of the land has somewhat changed since then. These days, it's a garden lover's paradise that attracts thousands of visitors a year, and amongst them is one of Brighton's best-loved gardeners. He's a passionate plants man who's well known for his work in an iconic TV garden. Today, though, he's brought us to the place where his love affair with botany first began to blossom.
I think Sheffield Park's played a big role in my gardening career because it set the tone for how I feel about landscapes and how I feel about plants, because that was to me where I first discovered the power of plants, and that kind of is imprinted in my being as I approach my profession. When I started my apprenticeship, I used to do my 4 days a week, then we used to do a day release at college and do the sort of academic stuff. But on a Sunday, 4 or 5 of us would come down here, and this was our playground, really. This is where all the enthusiasm begun, and look at it, really. I mean, it's amazing. If you like plants, how could you not love this place? You can come down here and just learn about your favourite subject.
Today, Blue Peter gardener Chris will be taking a trip down memory lane as he revisits the expansive landscapes of Sheffield Park Gardens. He'll meet the resident experts and he'll learn about the garden's fascinating history. He'll also be making his own special contribution to the future of these 200-year-old gardens. It will allow him to pay homage to the garden that inspired his illustrious career.
I think it's probably fair to say, before I discovered the delights of plants, I wasn't really travelling anywhere in life. I was probably a pretty negative person, maybe a bit angry. If I sum up the state of mind I was in before I was gardening, it was loose cannon, really. There's no direction to anything, you know, and I think this happens with a lot of young people, to be honest with you. So when gardening came along and I found my passion, it was just a flip side completely. It turned negativity into positivity, and the flip was just incredible. So once I knew that had happened to me, I was out the traps. You know, I really had got hold of something, and I knew it belonged to me, and then so all that negativity was lifted from my shoulders.
Sheffield Park Garden lies in the heart of East Sussex, just a short drive from the town of Royal Tunbridge Wells. The layout of the park centres around 4 huge interconnecting lakes, which are surrounded by open lawns and dense planting. At the top of the estate is the imposing Sheffield Park House, which was remodelled in 1762 by the architect James Wyatt. The landscaping was designed to reflect the beauty of this Gothic mansion, and to this day, the finest views of the house are those framed by the magnificent gardens.
You've got to remember the people that built this place would have been dead a long time before they see it at development. So that's a treat for me, isn't it? I'm now, all these years later, after they've deceased, being able to enjoy the fruits of their work and their vision. Coming in for the first time, you feel like an ant, you know, that's kind of like, there's quite a humble experience to it because of the sheer scale of it and the sheer size of it and the forethought that had gone into it.
When Capability Brown designed Sheffield Park, he was laying out a template onto which others could build. And in 1876, the estate was acquired by the extravagant third Lord of Sheffield, Henry Holroyd. He immediately went to town on the garden's water features and created one of the park's more ingenious elements.
Here you can see where the third Lord of Sheffield really came into his own. You can see his master plan, and it's the peak of Sheffield Park. And basically he wanted to create this, well, I suppose you could say painting with landscapes. So he's carved out this huge lake here, and apparently that was done by 2,000 people, all with shovels, before the days of spades and machinery. And that's how the banks on either side are formed. And the planting all performs this mirror, so it's similar each side, and you've actually got the reflections into the water. And later on, a man called Soames would come along and planted the rhododendrons in and kept this sort of almost butterfly approach to it, where you can see both sides of the lake in this mirror form.
Arthur G. Soames was Sheffield Park's 20th century owner, and from 1909 onwards he introduced a dramatic programme of planting. Top of Soames' list were rhododendrons, and he planted quite literally hundreds of these striking shrubs. They've since become one of the garden's main attractions, and head gardener Andy Jesson is charged with maintaining their beauty.
Soames was really into these in a big way, and this is evidence of his work, the rhododendron Angelo Sheffield Park.
So this is actually unique to the Sheffield Park, yeah?
Yeah, he produced these here.
And he's very bulk planted them, isn't there? They're all over the place. He liked group planting them.
Yeah, he liked them en masse, as you can see through, and then once the flowers, you've still got the effect of all the stems and the trunks coming through with the colour and the light.
Sure, and they're difficult to grow here, though, because they like sort of woodland conditions. Was it hard to establish them here?
Soames realised he was on a clay soil, so he got the right acidity. We're on a 5.5, but then he wanted to condition the soil, so he brought in thousands of cartloads of loam.
Thousands, yeah. He didn't do things by halves, this bloke, did he, at all? No,
not at all.
Tell you what else is good about them as well, because when they are flowering, they're special, but that's also got a really magic smell to it as well.
Yeah, well, Soames wanted them to be above you so that in the evenings the scent would drizzle down on you. It's quite overwhelming on the scale as well.
In the mid-19th century, rhododendrons were being imported to the UK from Asia, notably from the Himalayas, China and India. They would have been considered extremely exotic, and planting on this scale would have shocked visitors to the garden.
The rhododendron there are incredible, and the way they're banked like that, it's almost like a natural hedging, isn't it, he's used?
Yeah, he used to form a full screen at the side with the colours reflected in the water, and the views back from the bridge later on, you'll see one or two little gaps and eye lines that he left in.
I love that idea of like blocks of 30 roadies. Where he's mastered it is just that scale, that kind of, you know, that's what hits you straight away, isn't it?
Adding to Sheffield Park's feeling of scale is a mighty collection of skyscraping trees.
Oh, Andy, well, this is just like seeing an old friend, because it was probably about 20 years ago I first saw this tree. I remember being absolutely amazed by it. And then that's a sequoia, isn't it?
This is Sequoiadendron giganteum, the giant redwood.
And how old is that?
Well, this was planted in 1876 by the 3rd Lord Sheffield. So it's 130.
130, but they live a lot longer than that, don't they?
These will live to 3,000 years, one of the oldest living things on the planet.
What I love about this tree is, you know, it's not just visual, is it? It's got this lovely corky cambium. You know, you've got to be able to touch it, feel it. It's very spongy like that. Also, it's usually got quite a bit of resin on it, so you can smell it. So all your senses should get into this tree. It uses them all up. And this is actually fireproof, isn't it? This can't burn, this tree. And apparently the seed is 1/1000th the size of the actual grown adult in North America, and I just think that's a mad fact, isn't it?
Well, when you think as well that these can reach 80, 90 metres in height, this one's at 27 metres.
So this is just a pup then?
Sheffield Park is home to no less than 23 UK champion trees, which are either the tallest, oldest or most beautiful of their type. It also boasts several unique species of its own, including Nyssa sylvatica Sheffield Park, which is a type of gum tree, and Quercus robur Sheffield Park, a type of oak. But this impressive collection was decimated in October 1987, when 2,200 trees were felled by the infamous storms. Chris came to the park 2 weeks after that terrible event and was stunned by what he saw.
When I came here after 2 weeks, when you walked into the garden, the devastation was gradual. You'd see a tree down here and a tree down there, but you couldn't see the whole picture. When you see that kind of devastation, which is what's interesting about it, is I was incredibly sad. You know, I thought all the time and effort that had been put into this garden to build it, and it had been wiped away almost in a night. Well, trees are the kings of the garden, aren't they? Eyes get used to a certain landscape, the vistas, and you don't, without realising it, that becomes imprinted on your head. And so your first impression after a big storm like that is all the horizons have changed. And in a way, that completely checks you. It's a bit like leaving the house without your trousers on. Something feels really badly wrong. And so that was kind of a sad moment. You know, those sort of imprinted memories were suddenly lost. But us gardeners are pragmatists, and deep down, I felt another emotion, and it was almost like where there'd been an ending, there was almost a beginning.
Since those catastrophic storms, the team at Sheffield Park have undertaken a massive replanting scheme. The aim is that by 2011 they'll have added 5,000 trees and shrubs, more than replacing those that were lost in the storm. Today, treeaholic Chris has been invited to contribute to this scheme by helping assistant head gardener Tim Martin plant a rather special tree.
This is quite a special day for me, mate, because I'm getting to plant a tree in Sheffield Park. And I've been coming here 20 years, it's my favourite garden, so this is quite a big day for me. And this is a Nyssa, isn't it?
Well, this Nyssa sylvatica, or sweet gum, it's been grown here from the garden.
So a true Sheffield Parker, isn't it?
It's a true Sheffield Parker, continuing on the tradition that we've had for a long time.
Where was that originally from? That's from the Americas?
From around America,
yeah.
The Nyssa is well suited to Sheffield Park's nutrient-rich clay soil, so the key ingredient here is elbow grease.
We gardeners have as you know, we've got a bit of a saying of a penny for the plant and a pound for hole.
Yes, right.
We're really focusing on this hole, really.
Yeah.
So perhaps we should update it and say sort of 10 quid for the plant and probably 100 quid
pound for the plant,
hole,
tenner for the hole. And we've got a secret weapon here, haven't we, Tim?
Oh, this is our very own Sheffield Park leaf compost. A secret to any good garden. We collect it in the winter, all the leaves, keeps us warm, and it's full of really good bacteria.
And I'll take it that'll help break up the clay as well.
Well, the clay soil, it's important to break up clay with organic matter, and that just helps improve drainage and
gives the plants a boost. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to chuck that in there, like that, and then I take it we're going to fault that into the soil, or spray that into the soil. So we just turn that over, So we're on our way.
When fully grown, the Nyssa sylvatica will reach 18 feet in height. It'll help Sheffield Park maintain the impact that so impressed Chris when he first came here.
Yeah, when I walked in for the first time, again, it was one of impact, really, but also of my size, me as an existence in comparison to this scale of this place and comparing to the scale of the trees. Also, and the fact that there's a lot of plants for me to look at here, so there's a lot of information, a lot of knowledge for me to absorb, and that is a tasty feeling.
We're on the south coast, where Blue Peter gardener Chris Collins has chosen Sheffield Park as his favourite garden.
I think Sheffield Park's played a big role in my gardening career because it set the tone for how I feel about landscapes and how I feel about plants.
We've delved into the history of Sheffield Park and admired the picture postcard views. And we've seen Chris making his own contribution to the future of Sheffield Park.
And that must be quite good at holding the nutrients, isn't it?
It holds the nutrients, it holds the moisture. It's just great soil to grow on.
Chris has enjoyed 20 highly successful years as a gardener, but his career could have been very different if he hadn't come to Sheffield Park as a 17-year-old novice.
Well, when I started getting gardening, it all kicked off with the apprenticeship. And when you become a gardener, you do your 4 days, and then you do your 1 day at college. And our teacher advised us, you've got, go out and look at gardens. One of the ones he recommended to us was Sheffield Park. We used to look forward to it every week. And the thing about it is we are now surrounded by an amazing plant collection. And it's just about walk around in it, run around in it, cuddle the trees, get in amongst the foliage. That's all part of the gardening experience. Plus, more to the point, there's always something new to find here. I could come here now, 20 years later, and I'd still be finding new stuff. But you can imagine that at the beginning was so fresh and such a big feeling to me.
The exciting and inspirational design of this garden can mainly be attributed to 3 men. Arthur G. Soames, the third Lord of Sheffield, and Sheffield Park's creator, Lancelot Brown, who was nicknamed Capability.
Now, Capability Brown, Andy, loved a vista, didn't he? He was well into his vistas. How did he influence this garden?
Yeah, as you say, Brown was all vistas and views through, and he came along and he cut shapes through a lot of the large mature oak trees that you can see in the distance.
Sure.
And he also created the water upper and lower woman's way, which he wanted open grass areas with grazing sheep.
He was very much into big open landscapes, wasn't he? Is that right? Yeah. So it wouldn't have been as plant intensive as it is now.
Yeah. Not at all. You're absolutely right. There would have been open banks, and that planting came with subsequent owners that then started to make it far more dense. He would have wanted open areas and views through.
So in a little way, they've kind of undermined his original work, haven't they, by coming along and planting into it, because he would like to have seen skylines and breaks, etc.
Yeah, you use the word undermine, we say enhanced. Yeah,
I don't mean undermine, add to, improve. Yeah.
The undulating natural landscapes of Capability Brown were used by Sheffield Park's 19th century owner as the perfect pathway to a very special patch at the bottom of the garden.
Third Lord Sheffield was a very outgoing person, and he wanted to spend his money impressing people and showing what he'd got. But when he actually took on the estate in 1876, he started hosting cricket matches on the area we can see at the end there, the grassed area. The Australian Test team played their first tour match here. Still to this day play for the Sheffield Shield over in Australia.
So that's quite a well-kept secret then. This could have been the site of the first Ashes almost, couldn't it?
It was almost, yeah. W.G. Grace used to captain the home side. There'd be 22,000 people invited to watch, and he'd take them on big banquets and he'd bring them through his landscape garden.
The third Lord of Sheffield was so exuberant that he blew his entire fortune on these magical gardens and died penniless. Yet his memory lives on in the mirrored lakes, the avenues of colour, and this dramatic 50-foot waterfall.
They must have put that in by hand, eh? No machinery.
Yeah, these rocks were all positioned for the third Lord Sheffield under his instruction, ranging through the waterfall into a rockfall into the water here. They came in, sourced local sandstone and made some of them to act as shapes.
So they all fitted in like a jigsaw almost. Amazing.
Exactly.
So how would they do that? Was it masonry? Would they chisel away at it, or...?
No, it's like a rubble core with a Portland cement on the outside, but they kept the recipe within the family, and it died out with the family as well.
If you fancy visiting Sheffield Park, then you'll be glad to know that it's just half an hour's drive from either Brighton or Tunbridge Wells. There's also a well-connected railway station within walking distance. The gardens are open 7 days a week through the year from 10:30 in the morning. There's a small admission charge for adults and children, but National Trust and RHS members go in free. Sheffield Park Gardens played a huge role in Chris's formative gardening career. But since his days as an apprentice, visits here have become rare.
Yeah, but I haven't been to Sheffield Park for 10 years. So that's quite a long time. I've been overseas, a lot's happened. So, yeah, it's very nice to come back today, to do this, to walk around the garden again. It's retained its character totally, and it's a place of grand scale with big trees, big shrubs, and it still does it for me. Being in the mountains in Nagano in Japan, you get a lot of stuff there that I would see maybe here. You get like the Japanese acers and maples, and it's all that kind of thing of tiered planting, with there being trees, and then second story, and then shrub understory. And that's kind of how I like to see plants. Plants are community-based animals, and it's quite interesting how you connect, seeing something that's been nurtured and developed by humans, and yet you can see the connection to it, to our natural environment.
Of all the plants that Chris saw in their native environments, there's one tree that stands tall in his memory.
Yeah, so this tree is Ginkgo biloba, and this goes back maybe over 100 million years. So there's fossil records of this that date way back to prehistoric times. And so it goes back to the time of the dinosaurs, and that really caught my imagination. If you think about it, this thing was growing all over the world when Tyrannosaurus rexes were running around and pterodactyls, and obviously as a young lad, finding out that plants have been around for that length of time, that was quite fascinating. You can get them multi-stemmed like this one, so they can split and break, and that's very characteristic. But I particularly like the leaf because it does have a sort of prehistoric feel to it. It almost looks like a foot of a dinosaur. So I discovered this plant, the ginkgo at Sheffield Park. But years later, I went to work as a gardener in Tokyo, and there, the ginkgo is a street tree. So in a way, going from that point of seeing the ginkgo as a specimen plant that I thought should be planted individually and as special, you go there and it's the commonest tree there. There's ginkgo everywhere. Nowadays, you see ginkgo is a very, very popular plant, isn't it? You can get it in herbal medicines, you get it in cream lotions, and I feel a bit aggrieved by that because when I came to Sheffield Park, it was kind of my special plant, and I feel like the world's encroaching on it now. The plants aren't just a visual experience, they're a physical one as well. And I think, in a way, maybe some people will laugh at it and call you a hippie, but I just think part of the experience is you have to go up and touch that plant, and indeed you hug it if you have to, because that means that you're in contact with it then. And then more to the point, you've actually looked at it, learnt it, and you remember it. Now, we also used to come on a Sunday, and obviously it's a very busy garden then, so I think we probably raised a few eyebrows with our tree hugging and physical contact with the plants. But I reckon we started a trend, personally.
Having derived so much pleasure from Sheffield Park, today Chris is paying his debt of gratitude by helping to plant a beautiful Nyssa sylvatica.
What does it look like, Tim? Do you want to give us a shot of that? Is that in the right position?
Yeah, that looks pretty good.
Is that good?
Yeah.
So we can start consolidating it now, yeah? So, we have to take all the air pockets out, don't we, Tim? Because otherwise the plant gets in trouble very quickly.
Yeah, and it can't absorb the water, too much air in the way.
You get disease in there, don't you? Fungus and stuff like that. So you want to keep the thing alive, consolidation.
Yeah, get the soil right next to the roots.
Yep, so that's perfect for it, really. That's a healthy start. Now, there is another little trick we can do as well, and that is put a mulch down. Now, this is organic material, yeah? This is from bark?
This has got a bit of bark in, it's all composted so there's no weeds in there, and that'll keep the water in, it'll keep the weeds from germinating.
And it's organic, so it'll rot down, so you've got a bit of feed, more feed.
Yeah.
And that also, of course, the most important part of a plant is its root hairs. And when you move a plant, it gets stressed, like a person. It gets stressed. So, because we've stressed it by moving it, we need to give it some love and care.
A bit of TLC, just
a bit of
reminding
TLC, yeah. Try and make up to it. And what about staking? We've got a small stake on that now. As it grows, would you replace that with a larger one, or would you leave it to find its own devices?
Well, we tend to, Sheffield Park, like the little trees, to just flap around a bit.
Yeah,
because if we leave them to flap around, it encourages them to get their roots.
So it anchors it, gets itself anchored. Because I always thought it's only worth staking for the first year, because otherwise the tree relies on the stake, rather than the tree relying on its roots.
It'll just stay limp and pathetic for the rest of its life.
And then as soon as you get a heavy wind, it's gone.
It's gone.
Right. So that's probably about there. And I'll tell you what, we'll stand back and have a look at it, because I've just planted a tree at Sheffield Park, and that's put me in a good mood for the afternoon.
Sheffield Park Gardens have established themselves as a firm favourite for many a visitor, and for one gardener in particular, they're second to none.
This is my playground, you know, and it's just about to walk around in it, run around in it, cuddle the trees, get in amongst the foliage. You know, that's all part of the gardening experience. And being back here 20 years later, you know what? It still makes me a very happy man.